Processing center. We were able to talk to a mom. Her daughter had been separated from her in that processing center. She's being charged with illegal entry, and under the new policy, they will deliberately separate moms and dads from their sons and daughters. This is a choice that the Trump administration has made. It is inhumane, it is cruel, and we are calling on President Trump, who has total control over this decision, today on Father's Day, to end the policy and allow these families to reunite. I'm now pleased to turn it over to Sheila. Oh, sorry. Either one of you. One of the technicians.
Thank you all for being here. It's a pleasure to have you. It's important to bring issues not only to our region to notice, but also to the rest of the country. So we're happy to have senators and members of Congress from around our country seeing the injustices that are happening here along the border. And I think we're seeing a symptom of issues that we've ignored in Central America for years and in Latin America. So hopefully we can continue working on this. The separation of families needs to stop. That's not the America the world knows and loves. We need to take very important attention to this issue across both the Senate and Congress. And I appreciate the support that we're getting from around the country and members from around the country to be here with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sheila Jackson Lee, Congresswoman.
Yes, hi. Senator Merkel, thank you. Thank you very much for bringing us together. Sheila Jackson Lee on the Homeland Security Committee. Let me just quickly say that when you have a mother tell you directly that she's in fear that she will never see her child again, and when the United Nations Human Rights Commission indicates to the Trump administration you're violating human rights, then you know that what we are saying today is, President Trump, cease and desist, because you are moving the arc of justice to the heap of despair and the trash heap of injustice.
Thank you very much.
You know, it's a pretty grim sight to see really good, young, healthy-looking kids with so much fear, so much anxiety, so much wonder of what is next. They don't know where their parents are. They don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. They don't know if there's a future. And what has happened in this country as a deliberate decision by the President of the United States is to make it a crime for a mother and a father and a son and daughter to make a treacherous journey to knock on the door of freedom and be put in handcuffs. And that is what's happened. And after the parents are in handcuffs, their kids are taken away to parts unknown. That is appalling, and it is un-American.
David Cicilline from Rhode Island. I want to thank Senator Merkley for bringing us together. We just visited the processing center, and we're here to say loudly and clearly that our great country has had a wonderful tradition of welcoming people who are fleeing violence and persecution, and we do that through the asylum process. This new policy of the Trump administration, developed by the Trump administration, by the Attorney General of the United States, with the approval of the President of the United States, is undermining the founding values of this country, ripping children literally from the arms of their mothers in order to try to prevent people from coming to America. This is not what our country stands for. We are here today to bring attention to this, to call on the Trump administration to stop the zero-tolerance policy, which makes zero sense. And we saw the fear in the eyes of these children who are wondering when they will see their parents ever again. It's a disgrace, it's shameful, and it's un-American.
I'm sorry. Hi, I'm Mark Cocan from Wisconsin. I left the detention center with more questions than answers. When I asked how long someone would have access to their children, they couldn't give me a direct answer. When I said 15 minutes, they said maybe. I think I got the answer. When we asked people how long would someone be in the facility, they said no more than 72 hours. They try for 12. I talked to someone for 2 days, someone for 4, someone for 5, someone for 7, and someone for 10 days who've been in there. So unfortunately, I leave with more questions and more concern that this policy is not working and it's disastrous to the families who are involved.
Okay, we have a couple minutes. We can take a question or two.
Administration, have you spoken with the president? Any of you spoken with the president, or any of you talked to members of the administration about this?
So several of us have spoken to. Several of us have spoken to the administration. I've spoken directly to Jeff Sessions about this policy. We hope that we can ask the president to come and speak with us to talk to him directly. So let's see if he's willing to meet with us. Who else? Yes, ma'am.
I spoke with Representative Gomer yesterday at the Texas GOP convention, and he told me that he knew that the kids were being treated really well, that they were getting better food, better education, and a better environment, safer environment than they had at home, and that it very may well be that more children come across in order to get a place in a detention center. What do you have to say to that?
Let's be very clear. The American Academy of Pediatricians have made it, they said this is irreparable harm when people are fleeing persecution abroad, when they go through the hurdles of arriving to the United States of America, when they come here and all they have is the fact that they are with their parent, holding their hand side by side with them, and then they are torn away from their parent. They lose all sense of security. This is deep trauma for children, a huge, huge infliction on parents as well. There is no way that family separation policy is good for anyone. The administration says they want to do this as to send a message to families overseas about how you'll be treated if you come to the United States of America. Well, we used to have a message about how you'll be treated. It was called Lady Liberty, who held up a torch, who said, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. But now there is a new message from the Trump administration. And that new message is, you come here fleeing persecution, we will greet you on our shore, we will handcuff you, we will treat you as a criminal, we will take away your children, and you will never know when you might possibly see them again. This is absolutely un-American and wrong. We must end this policy of family separation.
Unless you're from Norway. Unless you're from Norway, sir.
Chief Padilla told us specifically they will not separate asylum seekers and have not from their children. Do you have evidence otherwise? Because they expressly told us unless they suspect it's a child trafficker, they have not done it.
Yeah, so here's what we're seeing. We're seeing that in international law and American law, you can seek asylum at a point of entry. It's completely legal to do so. What this administration has been doing is making it extraordinarily difficult for anyone to come into the port of entry seeking asylum. People have been out on the no man's land between Mexico and the United States for sometimes days at a time, in some cases 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 days out in the heat, being rejected to come in. That leaves the option of coming across the border, where the administration says even if you seek asylum, you are a criminal, you came across the border outside of point, we will arrest you and treat you as a criminal and take your children away. This is a complete strategy of injuring families seeking asylum to send a message to folks overseas, and under no moral code and under no religious tradition is this acceptable, and it has to end.
Amen.
Yes, sir.
You were here a week ago. You were in Brownsville a week ago and denied access to the facility at Casa Padre. What's changed in the last week?
Yeah, so I was here 2 Sundays ago, and I was denied entry in Brownsville, and it helps when you come with reinforcements. So we're happy to have our whole team here. As a result of that visit 2 weeks ago, the press haven't been admitted to go through, and you may see in this facility a very clean facility, and we're going to hold a press availability afterwards. But here's the thing. Those kids inside who have been separated from their parents are already being traumatized. Doesn't matter whether the floor is swept and the bed sheets tucked in tight. What matters is the kids have been separated unnecessarily from their parents as they await an asylum hearing. Yes. Oh, you've asked one. Let's go to somebody else. Oh, okay.
Do you have any confirmation or information about how the reunification process happens? Is there a process?
Let me see if anybody else wants to not mention about that reunification, or should I keep going? So we are told inside here, oh, it's just a very short period. They go to a judge, and then they're reunified. That's not what we're hearing from the advocates for refugees, from the ACLU, from anyone else. Because after people are sentenced for crossing the border, then they are going into criminal facilities, and the kids are being shipped off to who knows where. And it's also another thing we're told inside is how easy it is for parents to be in contact with their children. Yesterday I met with 5 families in Oregon, 5 fathers have been separated from their children. It's incredibly difficult for them to find out where their children are and to be able to talk to them. So the reality is it's very hard for the parents to know where their kids are and be able to connect with them.
And we saw an example of that.
And we were not permitted to speak directly, except in one case, to the people inside. So that's the question we have on our mind.
And we had the opportunity to speak to a mother, as one example, whose child was separated from her. She has no idea where she is. She's asked several times for information about that and has not been provided.
She's been here 2 days.
She's been here 2 days. Think of the barbaric nature of this. To separate a child from her mother and then deny the mother information about where her child is. This violates basic international human rights standards, as Sheila Jackson Lee says. And I think she wants to.
Let me just add.
She was 13.
Let me just add to the drama of this and to the horror of this. ICE takes over on these children internally and then transfer them to HHS, which may in fact locate the children as far away as New York or Chicago and beyond. This parent that we spoke to said that she's in fear of never seeing her child or not knowing where her child might be. I see a youngster sitting right here, and I would imagine that any mother or parent or father on Father's Day not knowing where your child would be, I can only say to you, this is unmerciful, and I would ask General Sessions not to quote scriptures that deal with slavery, and to realize that when you take children away and separate families, you are doing the complete opposite of the values of this nation, both in terms of democracy and human rights. It must stop now. Amen. We love our children.
Hey, we got 3 minutes.
Chief Padilla would not answer the question of whether he would follow a federal judge's order. Whether or not he would follow a judge's order and not separate time-served defendants from their children, because they will be back in the detention center within 48 hours.
I'm watching a press conference there taking place in McAllen, Texas, outside a Customs and Border Enforcement facility. We see members of the House, members of the Senate, Democratic members of each, speaking to reporters after touring that facility. I should say these are legislators from all over the country. We heard from Pete Welch of Vermont, David Cicilline of Rhode Island, Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas, and Jeff Merkley of Oregon, the senator from Oregon. I should say he was down there in Texas 2 weeks ago, tried to get a tour of a facility in Brownsville, Texas, you may remember, was unable to do that. As he said, it helps to bring reinforcements. He's come with some colleagues from the House and Senate today. What strikes me from what these lawmakers have said over the last few minutes is how many questions they do not have answers to. We heard from Mark Pokin of Wisconsin, said that he spoke with folks there within the facility, asking how long on average folks would be there. The responses that he got varied from 12 hours to 72. My takeaway from that conversation, again, with reporters, the fact that there are still a lot of unanswered questions about how this process is working. We're going to have much more coverage of what's going on down at the U.S.-Mexico border here in the next hour. My colleague Yasmin Vasugian standing by to take things away from here. Yasmin?
Thanks so much, David. An unbelievable moment, I have to say, on this Sunday afternoon. People banding together to change a policy in this country that they see as unjust. As David just mentioned, Senator Merkley there pointedly talking about how this is un-American. This is wrong, he said, that we must end this policy of family separation. And making a really good point here and saying it doesn't matter the way in which these children are being treated. What matters is that they are separated from their mothers and their fathers. And they're seeing that in this processing center that they just visited near the border there. I'm Yasmin Vasugian, everybody. Hello and welcome to my show. Immigration outrage as we are seeing families detained on Father's Day and lawmakers shut out trying to see them while the president tries to blame Democrats for his policy that separates children from their parents. Protesters are not letting it go unnoticed. So what is more important here? Building a $20 billion wall or breaking up these families? And Republicans now face the dilemma to come up with an immigration plan that appeases the president or face another government shutdown that could backfire on them during the upcoming midterms. A lot to cover this Sunday afternoon, everybody. Here we go.
This is unjust, it is un-American, and it is unbiblical.
Is zero tolerance. I don't think you have to justify it.
It is inconsistent with our American values.
The morality is the law. They're criminals when they come across.
Their election year strategy to win the midterm elections in 2018, that is keep their jobs, right, is to be as mean, as vicious, as cruel as you can be to immigrants.
They have the necessary medications, obviously food and shelter. They have exercise. They have education during the day.
What the administration is doing is they're using the grief, the tears, the pain of these kids as mortar to build their wall.
This is inhumane. I'd like to say it's un-American, but it's happening right now in America. We will be judged for what we do or what we fail to do now.
Happening this hour, everybody, outrage in action, as you have seen throughout the day, over the Trump administration's zero-tolerance immigration policy, resulting in the separation of migrant children from their mothers and their fathers. Today, protesters held Father's Day rallies demanding an end to this policy, and Democratic lawmakers are seizing on the issue, touring several detention facilities as well. Congressman Beto O'Rourke, who is running to unseat Republican Senator Ted Cruz in Texas, is in Tornillo, marching with demonstrators who are protesting a new tent city set up by the federal government to house migrant children. Take a listen to this.
Doesn't matter if you're being held in tents, as these kids are, or if you're held at a four-star hotel. If you're held without your parents who fled Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador with you because it was the only chance to save your life. If they traveled 2,000 miles, kept you alive, made sure that you could get here, and now you're taken from them. It doesn't matter where you're kept without them. And so on this Father's Day, it's important for each one of us to stand up for those kids.
And it's such a good point. If we all know children, we know that it doesn't matter whether you are at a Four Seasons or you're at a homeless shelter. If you're with your parents, that is where you want to be, even if it's at a homeless shelter. And the outrage is not just at the southern border. New York Congressman Hakeem Jeffries tweeting this photo with 6 other members of Congress at an ICE detention center in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Tomorrow, also, House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi will lead a delegation of 15 Democrats to San Diego to see firsthand the impact there of the administration's policies on families. NBC's Mariana Atencio, who's been doing some incredible reporting from McAllen, Texas, is joining us there. Mariana, I know that you have a lot of protesters behind you that are still gathered there to really come out against this immigration policy separating children from their parents. Talk to me about what you've been hearing so far.
Yasmin, I can tell you that these protesters are out here in the 100-degree heat, but they've been screaming and chanting for the children inside to know that they are not alone. This is a community here in the Valley that has come together in support of these families. We know that the CPB Processing Center, to my left, from what Jacob Soboroff reported, and now from what these lawmakers are telling us, is housing these families and these children. And it is the epicenter of where this family separation is happening. It is in there where these kids are being yanked from their parents' arms if the parents are in fact prosecuted. So as the lawmakers said, this is something that is being manufactured by the administration. So this crowd behind me, organized by Lupe, organized by Fuerza del Valle, organized by the Workers' Defense Movement, they are out here to put pressure on the administration. And, you know, we heard Senator Merkley tell it as well. He was here 2 Sundays ago, and now look at the crowd that is behind us now. They know that they are garnering some sort of momentum, and that especially on a day like Father's Day, they're not going to let this go. And in listening to the press conference from the 6 lawmakers that visited that processing center today, I can tell you one of the biggest takeaways for me, and just in fact talking to asylum seekers here at the border as well, is how hard, according to these lawmakers, this administration is making it for asylum seekers to actually turn themselves into ports of entry. This was something that was raised by the lawmakers here. They said that they're seeing people on the Mexican side of the border waiting out for 6, for 7, for 8 days with their young children in the 100-degree heat, and because of that, they're sort of, according to the lawmakers, forcing these people to cross the border instead of turn themselves legally at ports of entry, which is their international right as asylum seekers. So they said that ultimately that is what this administration wants, and they're not going to stand for it. Yasmin?
All right, NBC's Mariana Atencio for us. Incredible reporting there. Thank you so much, Mariana, for your work so far. For more on what's happening to these families, I'm joined by Lee Gallant, Deputy Director of the National Immigrants' Rights Project. at the American Civil Liberties Union. The ACLU actually is currently suing the Trump administration over its immigration policies. Also, Antar Davidson, former worker at a migrant shelter, and Chris Paluski, president of the Bethany Christian Services. Welcome to you all on this Father's Day. Thank you so much for joining me on this Sunday afternoon. Lee, I'm going to start with you. What is happening to these families once they're being separated, when they're entering these processing centers?
Yeah, it's horrendous. I mean, we can talk, I think you made the critical point. We can talk all we want about the conditions the children are in, but if you're torn from your parents at 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, that's the harm. Right? I mean, children look to their parents to protect them. These children are watching their parents helpless to protect them. The children are going to sleep every night wondering whether they're ever going to see their parents again. It doesn't matter if the conditions are impeccable. That's the harm, and that's what medical professionals are saying. And on top of that, the conditions in most of the centers are not great, where they're getting worse and worse. But it's really the harm of being pulled away from your parents that's doing the damage.
I mean, there are going to be lifelong repercussions to these kids being held in these detention facilities on average 52 days, being ripped from their parents' arms. I'm hearing stories of a child that many have mentioned on air because it is so heartbreaking, me being a mother of a young child myself, and I'm actually expecting as well, being ripped from their mother while breastfeeding.
Yeah.
That is just inhumane to me. This is not about politics.
Right, and I wish there was just like that was a one-off story, but there are so many stories like that. We represent a parent with an 18-month-old. She was forced to strap her kid in the car seat. The kid is screaming. They close the door, and the little child is looking out the window, conditioned to wait for her mother to walk around to get in the driver's seat, because that's what little kids do. And then the car drives off, and the little kid is just staring. It is just exactly what you said. It's not a liberal or conservative issue, a Democratic or Republican issue. This should be one where no matter what your views are about larger immigration policy issues, you don't want to go to sleep at night thinking about these 2- and 3-year-old kids all by themselves.
What's the current status of that mother and child right now?
Right, they have been reunited, but unfortunately there's thousands are not. We have a national lawsuit pending in San Diego where the judge has issued one strong ruling. We're hopeful that he will put an end to family separation soon.